Hi everyone. In this video we are going to very quickly review the midterm exam. And the first thing I want to do is say that the marks were really quite good. I was very pleased about that. The next thing I want to say is that if you got 60 or just above 60 and less, I'm not worried about you for a number of reasons. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be worried about your performance, but I'm not. Okay, so if you failed, you can still make it through the course. Anyway, the first reason is, and I probably shouldn't tell you this, the very first law exam I wrote, I only got 53 out of 100. Okay? Yeah, sure. Now, well, I'm retired, so you don't have to worry about that, but after telling you something like that, you probably wouldn't want to use me as a lawyer. I found that the law, even though there is some gray area, is pretty much black and white in a lot of instances. And so the problem is, unlike political science where you can BS your way through a lot of questions, you can't. You open the exam and you go, he actually wants answers to questions. I did go on to get first class mark in the course, okay, and I became a marker in subsequent years for the professor that was teaching it. So I picked up my ground. You can too. The second thing is it's not cumulative, okay? So the final exam, and please don't email me and ask me this, I'm telling you now, it's not cumulative, okay? That means you can forget everything you learned in the first half of the course. No, you can't forget it. It's really important to business. This is the most important course that you will take in the business department because, as I mentioned earlier, the law impacts every area. So you don't have to remember it for the final exam, though, and that's a big advantage. Okay, so we go from chapter 4 onwards, with the exception of a couple of things like vicarious liability and things like that consequently fall into the second half of the course as well. Okay, the other reason is you're learning things like cause of action, style of cause, the definition of assault, the difference between assault and battery. These are things that you're not familiar with, or at least I hope you're not familiar with. However, in the second half of the course, we're talking about employment contracts, we're talking about insurance, we're talking about companies and sole proprietorships, things that you're more familiar with, and I think that'll help as well. The other thing we're going to do is on Part C on the final exam, because we only have a 2-hour time slot for some reason. I asked for a 3-hour exam. You'll be happy to know they only gave me 2 hours. So on Part C, instead of having to identify the issues and give me the principles, which you did not very well on this exam, by the way, what I'll do is I'll give you a problem scenario just like the one you've had, but with the exception is I'll have blanks through it, and then you just identify the issue that the blank refers to. All right, so let's look at Part A. The only thing I want to say here is that your professor was a little sneaky. I put down precedent and stare decisis, and the answer to both of those was A. Okay, I said you had to pick out the best definition and put it in the blanks. I didn't say that the best definition wouldn't apply to 2 or more blanks. This threw you all off. Okay, and I thought, all right, I can't do that. So if you put A or the answer for stare decisis and then precedent, you went, oh gosh, I don't see anything else here. It should be that one, but I can't put it down. It's already been down there. Then I gave you the mark anyway. Okay. Only one person out of 71 said, oh, wait a minute, okay, definition A belongs to both stare decisis and precedent, and so everyone else got the mark anyway, so I gave her a bonus of 2, and I thank her for that. All right, that's all I want to say on Part A. However, in Part B, there are question 1 in Part B. I changed them around a bit so that people couldn't get on the phone and say, hey, what are you doing for question 1 in Part B? Because then they'd get really confused. And so there's 3 of those, and what you have to do is you have to look at your exam and you say, oh, wait, question 1 in part A was juridical person. So obviously this question 1 in part B belongs to that. Okay, you just have to sort that out for yourself. But if you have trouble with that, email me. The whole setup of the exam is that part A and questions 2 through 8 in part B gives you the ability to regurgitate to me. I shouldn't do that. Regurgitate to me and get a basic mark that would then allow you to go on and display your ability to apply the law and therefore, move up. And then question 1 in part B, I actually wanted you to apply the law as I did in part C. The difficulty you had with question 1 in part A is if you didn't know the material, if you didn't take good notes, then you were lost. And so I was probably overly generous giving marks there. So look at the answer guides, and then if you have any questions, you can email me. In part B, there were a couple of things that I thought were, really quite irritating. Okay. In question 2, which is the one about the Constitution of Canada and why it's numerous documents, there were 2 aspects to that question. And a lot of you said, oh, okay, I'm going to talk about the Human Rights Code. I'm not going to talk about the Constitution. So you only need to half the problem, okay? So anyway, and then the other problem with that, of course, is, the old Google. I just Google the Human Rights Code and why it's quasi-constitutional. You didn't take the notes. Googling it doesn't answer it, so you lost marks, okay? And then in question 3, that's where a lot of you did some Googling. You went, okay, let's see, defendant. What's a defendant? Google. Oh, a defendant is somebody that's accused of a crime. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Unfortunately, it's correct in the United States, not in Canada. Okay. In Canada, you are an accused. Okay, you are not a defendant. The defendant is an American affectation. And I find it irritating that so many of us want the United States, the way they do things in the United States, to dictate the way they do it here. And quite frankly, if you look at the United States right now, we just don't want to do that. Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, question 5, exactly the same thing. There were 2 parts to it, and everybody said, okay, well, let's pick one of those, and they'll get full marks. No, you had to demonstrate the development of the law in Canada using Regina versus Dudley and Stevens, and also the concept of negligence. So you lost some marks there if you didn't do both. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. You can figure out the rest of that yourself. What I want to do is get on to part C. And here I was overly generous. Okay, the marks are really good. I think I might be slowly losing my reputation as being a hard marker because I was giving part marks where I don't really think I should have, but I did, and I don't want to go back and remark them, so you're lucky. All right. Will argue is enticed away from the previous job, doesn't give the right notice, that's inducing a breach of contract, and that was worth 2 marks. Then there was a whole series of things about setting up the law practice and contacting bankers and everything, and everybody was looking at trying to figure out, is this like employment law? Is this it's just using your lawyer's time effectively. Okay, you go out and you make contacts in the business community. Use your lawyer's time effectively. And people were putting down, oh, it is use your lawyer's time effectively. Make sure you get to your lawyers on time. Like, where does that apply? Okay, it's you find a lawyer, a banker, an accountants that you like and you can work with, making referrals. Okay, that's the scratch your back. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. People are putting down human rights. This is sexual harassment. You scratch my back, I'll scratch you is slang for I'll send you clients, you send my clients, will work together, okay? And so if you didn't know the slang, you should have been able to figure it out. But anyway, then we got on to the goods on a website. Goods on a website with a price is not fraudulent misrepresentation. It's not the Competition Act, because I said don't look at criminal matters, and that's, you get criminally charged there. What I was looking for was invitation to treat or invitation to do business. You make a mistake, you don't go to jail, you don't get fined. You make a mistake, you can actually do two things. One is you can say, hey, that was a mistake. There's no contract here. I'm refusing to sell you the goods. Or what businesses quite often do is they just sell the goods at the lower price because they want your patronage. Okay, they don't want the aggravation. I gave marks if people actually went a little further and said the first 5, the contract was complete, so they get the computers. The second 5, they don't, because the offer by the customer wasn't accepted. Okay, the next one is unsolicited goods. Now I know I covered this because one student did it really well. If I receive unsolicited goods at my home, I am a consumer, and the Business Practices and Consumer Protection Act will protect me. I can actually get my money back, okay, or keep the goods and not pay for them, all right? But in a business scenario, no, you don't have that luxury, because when they receive the pens and pads and things, they are not a consumer, okay? They're not protected by that statute. So they do not get to keep the goods, all right? But they don't have to return them. That doesn't make sense. No, it does make sense. You send me the goods, hey, I'm not going to pay to send them back to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick them in the back room, and I'm going to start charging you rent. Okay, you're renting space. Okay, you come and pick up the goods. After a certain period of time, the rental covers the cost of the goods. Use them, because most of those businesses are trying to scam you. They send them to you in the hopes that, number one, you won't realize that you didn't order them and you'll pay for them. Number two, you'll go, oh, for crying out loud, I missed the time period, I didn't return them in time, so I guess I have to pay for them. And you pay for them. Or number three, you know what you're doing, and you have a purchase order, okay, a PO, a purchase order. Is there a purchase order for this material? No, there isn't. We didn't accept, or that means we didn't buy them. You get on the phone, you go, hey guys, we didn't order these. Come and pick them up. If you don't pick them up, we'll throw them out, or we'll use them after a while. Okay, then Ronald Rotund bumps into a woman. Oh, come on, guys, this is not battery, okay? He didn't go, haha, there's a lady, I think I'll bump into her, okay? And it's not negligence. Oh, but he was negligent. Yeah, but there's negligent acts where there is no legal consequences, and then there's negligence where there is. Negligence, 3 things. Did you owe a duty of care? Oh, yes, he owed her a duty of care, not to bump into her. Did he breach that duty of care? Yes, he breached that duty of care. He bumped into her. And did he cause damage? No. So it's not negligence, okay? It's one of those, what do you call it? It's one of those unavoidable accidents of life, okay? So, and I gave a mark here. If anybody comes back and says, hey, I need a mark for this or I need a mark for that, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, I'm taking that mark away because I shouldn't have given it to you. Assault, the swing of the umbrella, no contact. Perfect. A lot of people got that. And then, Rotund dances around. I know karate. Is that not a threat? Yeah, so that's an assault as well. However, he's just been swung at with an umbrella, so he's defending himself. So it is an assault, and then there is self-defense. And in the practice sessions of last year's midterm and the Grogan problem, there were assaults, self-defense, battery, self-defense. Pardon me. And I couldn't believe how many of you missed that, okay? So, swing of the umbrella, assault, dancing around. I know karate, self-defense, but it's also no assault. And, you put down, self-defense. And I'd go, okay, it cannot be self-defense unless there's a threat of assault. So I would give you the assault, even though you didn't put it down. And quite frankly, I probably shouldn't have done that either. Battery. Okay, some people said, hey, that's an assault and battery. Yes, you're absolutely right. Assault and battery is a crime. You don't get any marks for that. It's a battery. Okay, assault is a tort. Battery is a tort. Assault and battery is a crime. Okay, assault as a tort and battery as a tort are mutually exclusive. If I try to hit you and I miss, it's an assault. If I hit you, it's a battery. Okay, you don't get both. Okay, because assault does not occur if I actually batter you. All right. So it was defense of a third party. That was right off the practice problem in the midterm. So no problem there. And then Thunk, Crane comes in and says, hey, get out of here. And Thunk says, oh yeah, who's going to make me? Is that not an assault? Yeah. And then he drew out his Smith and Wesson. I used that idea in a previous problem. I said he drew out a Smith and Wesson, and it was amazing how many people in the class didn't know what a Smith and Wesson was, and so I thought, okay. And so this year I said he drew out his revolver, a Smith and Wesson. So he said Smith and Wesson is going to make you. That's obviously an assault, but hey, he's doing two things here. Number one, he's defending himself against Thunk's aggressive coming at him. And number two, he's using reasonable force to expel a trespasser. Well, maybe pulling out a gun isn't reasonable force, but when you got somebody that's a linebacker for the BC Lions, you don't pull out a ruler and slap them on the wrist. I don't like guns, but then they have to know Boston Illegal, and Denny Crane's always got a gun in that movie. Okay. Defamation, crooks, most people got that. Amazing how many people did not give me the principal. So I'd give you a blue mark there, which means I'm assuming that you know what it is. Defamation, incompetent buffoons. Buffoons is an insult. Incompetent, however, goes to the reputation of a lawyer. Earlier on, watch out, you fat lardo. Fat lardo is really impolite, but it's not defamation. Okay. All right. Standing to sue, cause of action. That was in there. It wasn't very clear. I don't care because he had over 60 potential marks. So if he didn't get that, and you go, hey, that wasn't very clear. Too bad. He could have got the others. He could have got much more. Now, the other thing that really irritated me was I told everybody, I don't know how many times, that vicarious liability would be on there. That's a concept I want you to know. Vicarious liability will be there. Vicarious liability will be there. 3 students out of 71 said vicarious liability. Okay? All right, conversion. Oh, wait. False imprisonment. This is a little confusing because people thought, it's got to be occupier's liability, a danger of which you ought to be aware. You ought to be aware that somebody's going to rush into your closet and slam the door and lock themselves in there. I don't think so. Okay. However, he rushes in, slams the door, he's locked in there, and Denny Crane says, let's just leave him in there for a while. Call the custodian. We'll let him out later. That is false imprisonment. Okay. Intentional unlawful confinement. Okay, the one that a lot of people answered very poorly was the restrictive covenant, and I'm also going to send an email to everyone to talk about an ethical problem here. We used to have more time in this course, and so we used to spend some time talking about ethics, and by gosh, I'm putting it back in there because of the answers I got to this problem. Restrictive covenant is a clause in a contract that is prima facie void because it restricts competition. So, Wanda was, I remember signing a clause that said I shouldn't do this. Okay, so I was expecting you to say restrictive covenant between an employer and employee, prima facie void, and then this is a rebuttable presumption, and then you would have got some marks. If you went on to say it had to be reasonable time, area, and the nature of the business covered, you got an extra mark. She took the list. That's conversion. You said theft. I think I gave you the marks. I shouldn't, because I told you the difference. But anyway, I did. And she's taking it taking it under color of a right. She thinks that she should be allowed to do it, although she remembers something saying that she couldn't. But color of right, you get a mark. And then here's the part that really upset me. The problem goes on to say that may I sue, I think, as the lawyer said, we don't have a really strong case here. Maybe we should, do something to. And what I was looking for is when we talked about the a civil court action or a private law action, balance of probabilities, plaintiff versus defendant, things like that. I pointed out that most of these cases are settled before trial. So obviously what she's thinking about is settling the matter, okay? She is not, and I'm talking to some specific students here, she is not suggesting, hey, let's bribe jurors, or she's not saying, hey, let's bribe the other side, okay? I was extremely disappointed that a number of students put that down there. And that's why I'm going to put ethics back into the course, because these things happen in 0.001% of cases, because there are always dishonest people out there. But to actually suggest that a lawyer would do that, I think, means that you'd better get your head screwed on straight, okay? When you look at the United States, pardon me, folks, the United States appears to be a very corrupt society, okay? Now, I'm not going to be, hey, there is no corruption in Canada, because I'm not that naive. But I do know that 99.99% of all lawyers are scrupulously honest and would not do a bribe, okay? And I think one of the other problems is we watch too much television. Hey, the show has to be exciting. Hey, there has to be a politician that's corrupt. Hey, the Attorney General of Canada must be corrupt. Hey, the Attorney General of this, or the lawyer in this case, has to be corrupt. There has to be conspiracies. And the problem is people are so generally stupid that they think that those shows reflect life, okay? Get a grip, folks. Those shows are entertainment and are supposed to be taken as entertainment, all right? Not taken as indicative of the basis of our society. Maybe the United States is like that. Fortunately, so far, Canada isn't, all right? So, and I'm not getting down off my soapbox here. I am directing that right at a problem in the answers to this this question on the exam. All right. Let's see, non-arm's length transactions. This one wasn't done very well. Generally, well, no, it wasn't bad. It's Balfour versus Balfour. I've put that on the marking guide. What I mean here is just it means it's between a husband and wife, or a brother and a sister, or a father and a son. Okay, family members, also close friends. All right. So and then there was a question about seals, and that was answered fairly well. Then we get to the one about firing the gun in the air. This came out of the episode in one of the Boston Legal ones, and I put it down because I thought it was kind of funny, and yet when I looked at it, it had so many of the legal issues that were relevant to our course in it. The first thing is there an intention to create legal relations? Well, no, not really. Why? Because they are close friends. It says so in the problem. And number two is that Alan Shore's comment was the exaggerated exclamation of an excited man. So there are two reasons why this was there was no intention to create legal relations. The other thing was I made a comment about it being a unilateral contract, and I actually gave some people a mark. So don't come back at me. I gave people a mark for saying, oh, it's a unilateral contract. Gosh, I told you that in the problem, so be careful there if you're coming back at me for more marks. Unilateral contract, acceptance, is by performance. Oh yeah, I accept your offer. But there's legality of object here, and that is it's a crime to shoot a gun. All right, in Canada. It's a crime to have a Canada unless you have a special permit, but it's a crime. So there's legality of object. And then some very clever people said, oh, well, wait. Oh, boy, man, I'd like to see something like that. Is that an offer to the person sitting beside you? Or would that be considered a vague offer amounting to no offer at all? And then the last thing was some clever people, and I had to adjust my marking guide thanks to them. Clever people said, well, they're drinking scotch. Maybe they're of diminished capacity because of the drinking. So those are clever, and I changed it. Okay, so that's the part C. All right, so where do we go from here? The final. I think you should do the same thing that you did in the midterm, at least most of you, I think, and that's have a list of all the terms, okay, with the definition so that you can get part A out of the way. You're going to need that because there's even less time on the final exam than on the midterm. We're down to 2 hours, where on the midterm we had 3 hours. Obviously, it'll be shorter, so don't panic, but yeah, you're still under a time crunch. What else can you do? You can do the questions at the end of the chapter. The funny thing is, I have the answers, which if you send me your answers, I send you my answers, and then you can check, right? I've never, I don't think, I'm going to have to go back in and check, but I don't think I've done the answers to chapters 7 and 8, because even the people that try to do those in the past have never managed to do it. But I have one really diligent student who has already sent me her answers to chapter 4, chapter 7, and chapter 8. And so I'm going, oh, wow, I guess I better do my answers for those chapters and get them back to her. So do that, because I think that'll help you on the final exam, particularly with respect to the Part B exam questions. Okay. The other thing you do is something that you didn't do for the midterm, and that is when I lecture, I say, oh, this will make a very good Part B exam question. Write out your answers for that. Don't Google them. Okay. All right. And now if you look at your problem and you think, hey, I've got something there that I think is correct and I didn't get marks for, you know what to do, okay? Because I covered that in my email to you. And that's enough. I just want to say thank you very much for your efforts. Doing online is a learning experience for us and a learning experience for you, but you guys seem to be handling it okay, so kudos.